We continue now at the top of Daf Chav Chesam and Beis Meseches Megillah. This is Megillah Daf 28b. The Bryce over here continues. Vein neosin b'hem. You're not allowed to adorn yourself inside the Beis HaKnesses. Vein mitailen b'hem. You can't take a stroll inside the Beis HaKnesses. Vein nechnasin ben b'chamim b'nei achamu v'geshamim b'nei ageshamim. And let's say it's very hot outside. You can't enter in the Beis HaKnesses just to avoid the heat. Or if it's raining outside, you can't enter the Beis HaKnesses just to avoid the rain. Vein maspidin b'hen hesped shel yachid. And you're also not allowed to do a eulogy for an individual. Aval korin behen, however, in the Beis HaKnesses you're allowed to read psukim. Veshonin behen, you can learn Mishnah, Halacha. Umaspidin behen hesped shel rabim. You're also allowed to do a eulogy for the public. Now Rashi says hesped shel rabim shel Talmud Chacham shemes. What that means is if a Talmud Chacham died, you can give the Talmud Chacham a eulogy in the Beis HaKnesses. Shetzrichin lehisasef ulaspido. In such a situation, you're going to need to gather a lot of people to eulogize. Ubeis HaKnesses roy lakach lefishu bayis gadol. And the Beis HaKnesses is fit for such a thing because it's a large house, it's a large area, so you can have the rabbim come and hear the eulogy. And the Brisa continues, Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, Eimosai, when is this true b'yishuv? And all of these halachas that we just mentioned about a Beis HaKnesses, that's when the Beis HaKnesses is in use. Avol b'chorbanan, but let's say the Beis HaKnesses is desolate, it's destroyed. So manichin osan, we just leave it. Va'olin bohen asavim, we allow the grass to grow. V'lo yislosh, and you shouldn't uproot the grass. Because we want people to see the grass and we want people to be in pain. They should be in pain that there is no longer a Beis HaKnesses in this location. And so the Gemara says, Asavim mandekar shemayu. Grass, whoever mentioned grass in this Bryce, it's like Rabbi Yehuda comes along and says, oh, you allow grass to grow. Tanakama never said anything about Asavim, so what's Rabbi Yehuda talking about over here? And so the Gemara says, Chisure mechsera v'hachi katani. The Gemara says there are words missing in the Brisa, and you should read it as follows. The Tanakama says you sweep the floor of the Beis HaKnesses, and you sprinkle water on the floor of the Beis HaKnesses, in order that the grass shouldn't grow. And on that, Rabbi Yehuda is talking. Rabbi Yehuda says, Amosai, when is this true? B'yishuvan, that's when the Beis HaKnesses is in use. Aval b'chorbanan, but if it's destroyed, manichanosan, then you just leave it, lalos, in order to allow the grass to grow. Alu ben asavim, and if the grass does grow, lo yislosh, you don't uproot it, agmas nefesh, again, because we want people to be in pain about the fact that the Beis HaKnesses is no longer here. Amar Rabasi says, Bate kanasiyos shebebavel, when it comes to the shuls in Bavel, al tenai hein asuyin. They're made on condition that they don't have the full holiness of a Beis HaKnesses, so therefore some of these restrictions that we just mentioned might not apply in the Bate Kanasios in Bavel. But nevertheless, you can't act in a light-hearted manner, in a frivolous manner inside a Beis HaKnesses, even if it's made al tenai. What would be considered a kalas rosh? Cheshbonos, if you're going to perform calculations in the Beis HaKnesses, that's not appropriate. Amar Ravasi, and Ravasi says, Beis HaKnesses, shemechashrin bo cheshbonos, if you have a shul where they do these kinds of calculations, malinin bo es hames, you're going to end up leaving a mace there overnight. Gemara says, malinin, what do you mean? You're going to leave a mace there? You should go that far in a situation where you're just doing calculations? Malin and Sakadayatzich, does it really mean that you're going to leave a mace in there overnight? That's what you should do. There's no other alternative. Lo sagi de lavhachi, there's no other solution over here. It means rather, ela lesof, rather what it means is no, in the end, such a Beis HaKnesses, lesof she'alinu bo mace mitzvah. In the end, what's going to happen to such a Beis HaKnesses is there's going to be a mace mitzvah, and there's going to be no choice but to leave that mace mitzvah in the shul overnight in order to take care of that mace mitzvah. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, ve'in neosin bohen. It said you're not allowed to, again, you can't adorn yourself in a Beis HaKnesses. It's, in other words, you can't use it the same way you would use your home. Amar Rava says, Chachamim v'talmidei, when it comes to the sages and their students, mutar, and they are allowed to use the Beis HaKnesses like a home. They can adorn themselves in the Beis HaKnesses. Diyomer Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, because Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said, my Bei Rabbanan, what does it mean, Bei Rabbanan? Beis of the Rabbanan, it means it's the house of the Rabbanan. We want the Rabbanan that they should be able to be there for long periods of time, and therefore they can treat the Beis HaKnesses like their house. And we'll take a look at a couple of Rashis over here. First of all, the Bate Knasios and Bavel al Tanai, they're made on condition, al Menashi Ishtamshu, in other words, there's a condition that you can use them for other things. Malinin Bo, it said that we're going to leave a mace over there. Mashma Dechovahi Laholin Bo, sounds like if you have a Beis HaKnesses where they do cheshbonos, it's like an obligation to leave the mace. You don't have any alternative. What does that mean? So the Gemara answered, no, l'sov she'alinu bo meisei mitzvah. In the end, that's what's going to happen, meaning, she'yamusu b'ir meisim she'ein lahen koven. In other words, in this particular city, what's going to end up happening, because of the fact you're not treating the Beis HaKnesses with the proper respect, is that in the city, people are going to die, and they're going to have no one to take care of them, no one to bury them. My Bei Rabbanan, what does it mean, Bei Rabbanan? Lama Korin Bate Midrashos Bei Rabbanan. Why do they call it Beis Medrash a Bei Rabbanan? Lefisha Beis Amul L'chol Davar. It's this exact idea. The Beis Medrash functions as a house for the Rabbanan for all types of matters. They can use it as they use a house. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Vein nichnasen behen bechamim mipnei hachamim v'gshamim mipnei hagashamim. You're not allowed to enter into Beis Knesses. Let's say it's hot outside because of the heat, or you're going into the Beis HaKnesses because of the rain. If that's why you're going to the Beis HaKnesses, it's not an appropriate use of a Beis HaKnesses. Kihod Ravina v'Ravada bar Masna. It's like the story with Ravina and Ravada bar Masna have a kaimi v'shali sheilta mei Rava. They were standing and they were asking shilas from Rava. So asa zilcha demitra. So then came a bunch of rain and aili levei kanishta, and they went into the shul. Amri, they said, Hai dailina levei kanishta. That which we went into the Beis HaKnesses, lav misham mitra. It's not that we're going in because of the rain. That's not allowed. Rather, the reason is because when you're learning a sugya like we're learning, so you need to have it has to be clear. You have to have a clear mind. It has to be a clear day, like the day of when the northern wind blows is a clear day on those days. In other words, the point is it's difficult to learn a sugya in such depth if it was raining, and that's the reason we went into the Beis HaKnesses. Amalei Ravacha brei de Rava le Ravashi. Ravacha brei de Rava said to Ravashi, "Yitztorech leile inish lemikri gavra mi bei kanishta mai." What if a person needs to call someone out of a shul? What's the appropriate way to do that? Amalei said to him, "Yitzor me rabbanan hu leimu hilchasa." If the person is a Talmud Chacham, so when he goes into the Beis HaKnesses, he shouldn't just go in there just to call the person out. Go in there and say over halacha. Vitanu, and if he's a Tana, Lema Masnisan, he should say over a Mishnah. Vikaru, if he's somebody who knows Psukim, Lema Psuka, let him say a Pasuk. You should go into the Beis HaKnesses and do something along those lines. Vilo, and if he's none of those things, so what should he do? Lema Leili Yanuka, he should go into the Beis HaKnesses and say to one of the school children, Emoli Psukach, tell me the Pasuk that you're learning. Inami, or if you can't do that, Nishi Porsav and Akum, he should stay in there a little. Don't just go in there just momentarily. Stay in the Beis HaKnesses for a short period of time and then get up. And Rashi over here says, Zilcha Demitra, again, they were learning outside. It started to rain. Zerem Mayim Sheboim Bekoach. It means it was a strong rain. It was disrupting them. Lav Mishomitra. They didn't go in the shul because of the rain. Sheyagen Aleinu, because they wanted to be protected from the rain. Mimnei Hagashamim. Shim Lo Hayinu Oskin B'Shmaita Lo Hayinu Nechnasim. What they said was, if we weren't learning right now, we wouldn't have went into the Beis HaKnesses. It was only because we're learning. We needed to have a clear mind while learning. Tzilusa Das Tzilula. You have to have a clear mind to learn them. Yusheves, a settled mind. Sheino Tarid B'Chlum Machshava. That's not thinking about other things. That's the real reason why we went into the Beis HaKnesses. Now, what should we do if we need to call someone out of the shul? If you're not allowed to enter for no reason, so what should you do? And so the Gemara gave a bunch of solutions. The Gemara continues at the two dots. And we said that in the Beis HaKnesses you're allowed to do a eulogy where the public is going to come. Let's say a eulogy for a Torah scholar. So then the public is going to come. You need a lot of space. You can do a eulogy in the Beis HaKnesses. The Gemara says, what exactly is the case of a public eulogy? So Machri Rav Chisda Gagon has paid the decoy bei Rav Sheshes. So Rav Chisda pointed out it would be like a eulogy. If Rav Sheshes is present at the eulogy, then you already know the entire public is going to come, so you can use a Beis Knesses. And Machri Rav Sheshes Gagon has paid the decoy bei Rav Chisda. Rav Sheshes said the exact opposite. He said a eulogy where Rav Chisda is going to show up. That's one where you know the public is going to come. You can use a Beis Knesses. Rafram Aspida Lekalse Bevei Kanishta. Rafram gave a eulogy for his daughter-in-law in the Beis HaKnesses. Amar, he said, Misham Yikra Didi with the Misa Asu Kuli Alma. Because of my honor and the honor of the mace, everyone's going to come. We can do it in the Beis Knesses. The Gemara continues along the same lines. Rabbi Zera Safte Leahume Rabbanim Bevei Kanishta. Rabbi Zera eulogized a particular sage in the Beis HaKnesses. Amar, he said, Misham Yikra Didi, Misham Yikra Demisa Asu Kuli Alma. Either because of my honor or because of the honor of the mace, everyone's going to come to this eulogy. We can do it in the Beis HaKnesses. Reish Lakish Safte Lahut Tzur B'mei Rabbanan D'Shchiach Ba'arad Yisrael. Reish Lakish eulogized a particular Torah scholar who used to frequently go to Eretz Yisrael. Davitani Hilchasa B'Chav Dalet Shorsen. He used to learn halachas. He was in the 24th row, meaning he wasn't the greatest student. He wasn't in the first row. He was in the 24th row, but still he gave him a great eulogy. Amar, he said, Vaychosra Arad Yisrael Gavra Rabba. Woe is to Eretz Yisrael, lost a great man. Hahuda Avitani Hilchasa Sifra V'Sifri V'Tosefta. The Gemara gives a contrasting story. There was a person who learned halacha, Sifra, Sifri, Tosefta, B'Shachim, and he died. Asu v'amru leila Rav Nachman. They came and they told Rav Nachman, Lispedei Mar, can the master give a eulogy for this individual? Amar, he said, Hechid Nispedei, what can I say already about him? Haitzana Demali Sifri Dechaser, what I'm going to say, he's like a basket, he's full of empty books, as Rashi over here says. Haitzana mole sifri einu ela kesal shemiluhu seforim ve'in maven mabisocha. What he means to say is he's like a basket that's filled with seforim, but he doesn't understand what's inside of the seforim. Afshona halachas v'loshimish talmidei chacham. The same is true. Somebody who learns a lot of halacha, but he doesn't understand what he's saying. He doesn't serve talmidei chachamim. So lilmod shivinu taimei mishnah upamim shedivrei mishnah. Sozun says sometimes there are contradictions in mishnayos. The person doesn't understand. Betzarach l'tarzuk could go on hacham mayaskinu, could go on money Rabbi Plonihi, could go on chisuri mechsura einu yodei mashona. So that's what he said. Rav Nachman said, what am I going to eulogize about this particular individual? He doesn't really understand what he's learning. And so that's what Rav Nachman meant when he said, we've lost a basket that was filled with svarim. Again, it means to say he was a Talmud Chacham, but he didn't really understand everything that he had learned. And the Gemara comments, Tachazi, come and see. What's the difference between the strong ones of Eretz Yisrael, lechasidei de Bavel, to the righteous of Bavel? The Gemara is making a contrast that Reish Lakish was very respectful, even for a scholar who was in the 24th row. Whereas Rav Nachman, here you had somebody who knew so much, and yet Rav Nachman did not act in the same manner towards that particular individual. Rashi says over here, Tkifei Ardi Yisrael Reish Lakish, that refers to Reish Lakish. The Amrina Meseches Yoma Dafilu B'Hadei Rabba Barchana Lo Mishtoi, the man of Mishtoi B'Hadei Reish Lakish B'Shuka, Yehaven Le Iska Below Sahadi. It says over there that anyone who is able to speak to Reish Lakish in the marketplace, you can give him business without witnesses. You can trust that person. Reish Lakish was a great one of Eretz Yisrael, and Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Mechasidei Bavel. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak was from the righteous of Bavel. B'Shili Meseches Sota, that's at the end of Meseches Sota. The Kamar Arlei Lo Sisni Yiras Chet Iko Ano. I'm a person who has Yiras Chet, said Rav Nachman. So the Gemara is saying a contrast over here between Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak and Reish Lakish. And the Gemara continues, Tanan Hasam, we learned over there in the Mishnah, there's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Udi Ishtamesh B'Taga Cholaf. If somebody tries to use the crown of Torah for their personal gain, so Cholaf, so they should die, they should pass from the world. Tani Reish Lakish taught Zam Ishtamish B'Misha Shona Halachas Kisra Shel Torah. What that refers to is somebody who tries to use for personal use. Somebody makes use of a Talmud Chacham who learns halachas, the crown of Torah, and you want to use that person to serve you. That's a problem. V'yamar Ula, and Ula said, L'shtamish inish b'man detani arba, v'lo l'shtamish b'man demasni arba. Better to use somebody, if you're going to have someone serve you, better it be someone who learns through four of the starim of Mishnayos, and don't use somebody who teaches. That's already a higher level. Someone who teaches the four starim of the Mishnayos, that already you certainly don't want to make use of such a person that they should serve you. Kihad Reish Lakish, and the Gemara here says a story like that which we find by Reish Lakish. Have a Ozel b'Orcha, he was going on the road. Mata Urka Madamaya, he came to a large puddle of water. He had to cross over a lot of water. So Asahu Gavra, so a particular individual came, Arkaveh Kasve, and he put him on his shoulders. He was able to walk him over the water so that Reish Lakish shouldn't get wet. He put him on his shoulders and he crossed over this pool of water. Amar Le, so Reish Lakish said to the individual, Karis, do you learn Psukim? Amar Le Karina, he says, yes, I learned Psukim. Tanis, do you learn Mishnah? He says, Tanina Arba Sidrei Mishnah, I learned 4 of the starim of the Mishnayos. And so the Gemara says, Amar Le, so Reish Lakish said to him, Psad Loch Arba Tura, you carved out these 4 mountains, meaning you know the 4 starim of Mishnayos. Betoad Bar Lakish HaKaspach, and yet you're carrying Reish Lakish on your shoulders. Shadi Bar Lakish Avamaya, throw Reish Lakish, throw me into the water. So Amar Le, so he said to him, Nichali Dashme Lamar. He said, no, it's pleasant for me. It's good that I should serve the master. I want to serve Reish Lakish. So Reish Lakish said, if so, Gemor Mini Hamilsa, at least learn something from me. The Amar Reb Zera, you can learn the following statement of Reb Zera. Reb Zera said, Benos Yisrael, the daughters of Israel, Hein Hechmiru al Atzman. They're strict about themselves. Shafila Rose, Tipas Dam Kechardel, even if they see a small amount of blood, the size of a mustard seed, Yoshvos Olav Shivanikim. They still sit 7 clean days. They act as though, Rashi over here will explain, even though they just saw a little bit of blood, they don't need to wait 7 clean days, but they act as though they're Zava, and they wait for 7 clean days in order to purify themselves. Rashi over here says, Shechmir al-Atzman, Demidoraisa, Ein Tzricha Shivanikim, Elahoroa, Shlosha Yam, and Ritzuf Mesochir Alaf Yom, Shebei Nidal and Nidar. At the Doraisa level, you only need to wait 7 clean days. If the woman sees blood for 3 straight days, in the 11 days, that's not really the time of her period. If it's the time of the period, so it doesn't matter. Even if all 7 days that she's waiting, she sees blood, As long as it stops, then that very evening, right when it stops, she can immerse herself that night. But the Benos Yisrael were strict on themselves. And not everyone knows exactly when the period is. They don't know if they're in the 11 days between the time when they might have their period. And so therefore, again, that's why they were strict upon themselves, and they said they'll always wait Zayin Nikiyim. And Rashi continues, Vim Tomer, if you're going to ask as follows, Lo Yachmir ala begimel ritzufin, what are they being so strict for? They should only be strict in a situation where they saw 3 straight days, because that's when there's Zava Gedola. Otherwise, what do you have to do 7 clean days for? It says it has to be many days when it's not the time of the Nida. So Rashi answers, no, sometimes even seeing one time, it's going to require 7 clean days. Minatora, Ketzad, how so? For example, let's say you have a situation, a woman is a Zava Gedola, and she's counting 7 clean days. She's counting the 7 days for being a Zava. Now, if she sees on the 7th day even a small amount of blood, the whole thing is undone. So there is a situation where she'll need 7 clean days. Inami, you can have another situation. Maybe she did see 2 days previous, she didn't realize. Now she sees and she does realize. There really was 3 straight days she didn't realize. Maybe she really does need Shiva Nikiyim. For that reason, the Benos Yisrael were strict. And the Gemara continues, Tana Devei Eliyahu is taught in the house of Eliyahu, Kol Hashona Halachas, anybody who learns Halachas, Muftach Lo Shu Ben Olam Haba, it's guaranteed that somebody's going to go to Olam Haba. Shenemar, like the Pasuk says, Halichos Olam Lo, his ways are eternal. Al Tikre Halichos Ela Halachas, don't read it as Halichos, rather you should read it as Halachas, meaning Halachas Olam Lo. Somebody who learns Halachas, the Olam is low, he's Muftach, that he's going to Olam Haba. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video, and Daf Chav Tes Amud Aleph.